welcome back to my channel. This is actually part 2 of a video that goes up today. In the other video we made this stationery set that included envelopes and 30 pieces of hand stenciled stationery. If you didn't catch that video, I encourage you to check it out. It's pretty short and lots of good information is in there and inspiration. So today's video we are making the card that's going to go with that particular stationery set. This is for Mother's Day. I'm going to be using this stained glass foil plate from Pinkfresh Studio. That is going to go on some Hammermill cardstock with some Spellbinders GOLD Glimmer Foil. This set from Pinkfresh Studio actually has a die, stencil, and this foil plate. This is some purple cardstock that I've already stamped my little hand, with love stamp on the back. This cardstock is from diecutslovepaper on Etsy. I did a release and review of, or kind of a haul and review video a while ago. I'm going to be using the Simon Says Stamp All About Mom stamp and die set, and I'm going to be using this Hero Arts Togetherness Flower Bouquet, I believe is what it's called. Yes, Hero Arts Togetherness Flower Bouquet stamp, and I'm going to stamp that on some regular white cardstock. I do have my glimmer foil machine heating up right there, and then I'm going to be using this die set. I think this is from Spellbinders. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's from Spellbinders, and then some vellum that I purchased on Amazon eons ago. So the first things first, I have turned on, while I was jibber jabbering away, I had the glimmer machine heating up, and that light has now turned to a steady green, which means that the platform is ready. So all I've done is taken that Hammermill cardstock. I've placed the pretty side of my foil facing up and the patterned or pretty side of the foil plate facing down, kissing or touching that gold foil. And I've taped all of that together. I have taken some notes from Amy R. on Prairie Paper and Ink, and she has found that if she tapes all of that together, she gets much better results. And I would say I have to agree with her. So I have discovered with my die cut machine that I needed just a single piece of cardstock as a shim. That gave me the perfect amount of pressure, particularly with a big plate like this. That just gives me the right amount of pressure. You may discover that you don't need a shim. You may discover that you need 2 shims. You may discover that you need a metal adapter or something. But as you can tell, I got absolutely stunning results. I don't believe I have ever foiled before with this kind of perfection. So this was really exciting for me. I am going to keep this negative piece, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. And I used the Pinkfresh Studio solid foil plate, and I'm going to repeat these steps. I'm going to put the pretty side of my foil facing up again, the quote-unquote patterned side, or the business end of this solid hot foil plate from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm going to tape it all together, and I'm going to repeat that process. Flip that over to where the metal is touching the hot foil plate is touching the platform, and I'm going to press my timer button, and then when that light stops flashing green, I will run that through my die cut machine. And again, I got really good results. There is a little bit of, I guess, under foiling, you could say, and I probably could have alleviated that had I used just one more shim, but I didn't. But this is in a spot that if I wanted to, if it really bothered me or was very distracting, I could always put something over that spot, whether that be an embellishment or focal image or a sentiment. But I'm just going to keep that in my extras drawers for the next time that I get creative. So this, I actually purchased the stencil set that comes with this foil plate and die, and my recipient loves the color purple, so I am going to use all Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks, and I am using Lilac, Orchid, and Amethyst. Those are in a trio together, and The big layer, or the most open layer that will show the most color, I'm doing that in the lilac color. I will go back, and as these areas get smaller, I will use a darker ink. So for this first stencil, I'm going to use the lilac. The next stencils do the diamonds. So there's the big diamond and the little diamond, and I'm going to use two different colors of purple for those diamonds. This is the second layer. This is the larger diamond, and I'm using the ORCHID ink for that. This stenciling looks really, really splotchy, and I am aware of this. I could have worked it more to get a more seamless and even blend, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. I knew that I was going to cut this out. I knew that I was going to be putting a sentiment and some florals over the top of it, so I didn't feel the need to have a super smooth blend. Plus, I know that these inks will smooth out as they dry, and so I didn't feel like it was necessary to kind of work extra hard to get a super seamless blend right here. So this is the final layer. This does the smaller diamonds, and I did this in the amethyst ink. So once we get these all ink blended, the ink blending is done. I wanted to have a small border of purple hanging off of this card panel, so I knew I would be cutting this down, and so I'm not worried about that ink blending that's kind of outside. And again, you can kind of see that this looks awfully splotchy. Again, I'm not super concerned about that. It's going to get covered up for the most part. So I'm taking a rectangle die here. I think this is a Hero Arts nesting infinity die, but I am not 100% sure on that. And I just picked one that gave me the kind of outside purple border that I liked. And then I'm going to glue this panel down flat. My die cut plates must have been dirty because I had some like black smudging on there, and I knew I hadn't used any black ink, so it has to have come from my die cut plates. I guess it's time to give those a bath. But I'm just going to take some liquid glue and glue this down flat. You could have popped this up, but I knew I was going to pop up my flower, and I knew I was probably going to pop up the vellum, and so I didn't want to make this too terribly bulky. Even though this particular set will probably be hand delivered, I didn't want to make it too terribly bulky. So I just decided to glue that panel down flat. We're going to move on to the floral, or the focal image. This is that Togetherness flower bouquet from Hero Arts. I'm going to stamp this in some Gina K amalgam ink. The reason why I chose this ink is because you can use it with all of the mediums. This is the first ink that I am aware of that you can use with watercoloring and alcohol markers, and both of those mediums, because they are so very different. This is the first ink that I am aware of that actually lets you use it for all of those, and so it's a very nice ink to have around, particularly if you have a very limited amount of space in your craft room. Instead of having an ink that you have to use with watercolors, or an ink you have to use with alcohol markers, and an ink you have to use with whatever else, colored pencils or whatever, this is a very versatile ink that will kind of cut out some of the, I guess, clutter. I have actually gotten rid of a lot of my other inks and just used this and my VersaFine Onyx Black. This one doesn't stamp as crisp black, so I do have a re-inker for it, and I do find that I have to stamp it at least twice, as opposed to when my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad is juicy, I only have to stamp it once. But that's just kind of the nature of it. So because I had to stamp this multiple times, I did let this dry before I went in with my coloring. So I have a whole slew of artist markers here, and I thought to myself, you're not going to use every single one of these markers. I don't know why you're pulling all of these out right now. Well, I used all of them but two. So, yeah. I'm going to end up speeding up this video because this part is in real time. I am not a colorist. I mentioned that, and I've not been shy about that. I'm not a colorist. If you want to get some excellent instruction on coloring to get dimension or texture, how to deal with shading and lighting and light sources, Kelly Lodovola Taylor and Sandy Allnock are spectacular artists. And I would highly recommend you looking at their videos and their channels. Their channels are their names. And I will put them in the description box below this video. But just incredible creators, incredible artists. I do very, very basic coloring that I try to pick up tips from things that I've learned from them. I watch Kelly Lodovola Taylor more than I watch Sandy Allnock. Sandy Allnock's at a whole nother level for me, and I find her stuff very intimidating, but incredibly beautiful. And I think if I was in the right headspace, you know, and had the time to actually take classes from her, I think she would be able to help me. But I enjoy story time with Kelly. And so I have a tendency to watch her stuff more because it seems more attainable, I guess you could say. But both of them are tremendous. So here I'm going to really speed up the video. This is 4 times as fast than I actually color. And I'm going to do some very basic beginner artist marker coloring for dummies level coloring here. I just put the darkest color where I think it would be darkest, so like toward the center of the flower, or if there is a leaf or a petal laying on top of another one, that would be darker. If there's a fold, like if the artist has drawn in to where it looks like there's a fold somewhere, that would be darker. I try to put a dark color there. The color that you want to see the most of is your medium colors. So if you have 3 markers that you're using to color in a particular spot, your second color or your medium color is the color that you're going to see the most. You're going to see very little of the dark and a little bit more of the light. And then you're going to see most of the middle color. So I used a whole bunch of artist markers today. Whole bunches. Like I said, I was like, I'm not going to use all of these. Used all of them but 2. So, you know, go figure. So the Altenew artist markers I'm using today are Autumn Blaze, Fire Brick, Warm Sunshine, Buttercream, Pink Diamond, Razzleberry, Rubelite, Pinkalicious, Mountain Mist, Lagoon, Grass Field, Firefly, Mountain Pine. I think that is Shadow Green, Shadow Creek. Can't read my handwriting, folks. I'm not sure. Wisteria, Hydrangea, Andromeda, Ultraviolet, and I stamped that particular image in that Gina K ink that you saw. So you did see me put kind of a darker orange and then use a lighter yellow. That is called the tip-to-tip method. And that is if you have a huge disparity in color, so you have a really light and a really dark, and you need a medium or a color to kind of bridge the gap, you can do a tip-to-tip method. So you take your darkest marker and you touch your lighter marker to it, and you put your lighter marker to your project that you're coloring. And that helps give you a 3rd shade, or in this case, a 5th shade. There was a big disparity between the oranges and yellows I was using. I find it very difficult to get depth when using yellow, and so I have a tendency to try to shade that in with orange just to make it have some dimension. But in this case, there was just such a huge disparity between the colors, and it looked weird. Even to my untrained coloring eyes, it looked bizarre. And so I decided to use that tip-to-tip method, and that gave me a color to kind of bridge the gap there. Another technique that we're going to do in this video is called color glazing. This is, again, something, the tip-to-tip method and the color glazing are something that I've learned from Kelly Lodovola Taylor that I was mentioning earlier. So I wanted to have different shades of greenery here. There's two or three different styles of leaves here in this image, and I didn't want them all to be the same. that's just kind of boring, and they're clearly different varieties of plants. So what I'm doing here is I'm coloring out the 2 shades that I used to color in those particular images, and then I'm taking some of those aqua colors and going over it. That will tint it, in this case, more toward blue. If I wanted it to be more of a bright green, I would have glazed it with a yellow. If I wanted it to be more of a dark green, more of a hunter or piney green, I would have used a red or a pink. That would have just given me some different shades and some more interest to these. What I've done here is I've taken my Sakura Jelly Roll pen in the 8, and I am just adding some highlights. I am not paying attention to a light source. I'm not paying attention to anything other than, hey, I think a highlight would look nice right here. They're kind of difficult to see in the video. They're a little more evident in real life. I did take this off screen and put it through my brother's Scan and Cut and have my brother Scan and cut that out. So we're going to move on to the sentiment. Again, my sentiment comes from that All About Mom stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. And I am going to go ahead and use Happy Mother's Day. This stamp set is really great. I mean, even if it's not Mother's Day, like if you have to send a card to your mom, for whatever reason, there's Thanks Mom, there's You're the Best Mom, You're Beautiful Mom. I think that's what I used on my Mother's Day card. There's You Are Wonderful, which you could use for anybody and anything just to encourage them. So this is a really great stamp set, one that I am very happy that I bought and has gotten a lot of use lately. So I'm going to gold heat emboss this. I've treated this with my anti-static powder tool. I just have a piece of scrap cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp this out in some VersaMark ink, and I'm going to sprinkle on some Ranger Gold Embossing powder. And I use a coffee filter to help catch the excess embossing powder. I know there are a lot of crafters that have either more space or just more of a particular powder, and so they put theirs into like a plastic container with a lid. I don't have a whole lot of embossing powders, nor do I have an endless amount of space, so I keep mine in these little in the little pots that they come in, and I just use a coffee filter to help me catch the excess and funnel it back in. I'm going to go ahead and heat set that, and I don't know if you guys heard that, but those were hummingbirds. If it sounded like a little jet engine went by, those were hummingbirds. I'm outside. Oh, those birds are funny. Anyway, I love watching gold embossing powder, metallic embossing powder heat set, because it is so pretty. You know that it is heat set when it is no longer grainy and it is smooth and shiny. So I went ahead and heat set that. I'm going to use my little Sizzix Sidekick to die cut that out using the coordinating die. And then I thought about, just going ahead and cutting that out several more times, but I knew I was going to pop up my flower, and so I held off on that because I wasn't sure of my layout yet. So I've taken that die set from, I believe it is from Spellbinders, and I've taken the largest circle from there, and I'm going to cut a piece of vellum from that largest circle. This vellum is from Amazon. Like I said, I purchased it forevers ago. I can't even tell you where it's from or who it's from or the brand. All I know is I purchased it off of Amazon. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, run that through my die cut machine. Once I've run that through my die cut machine, I'm just going to kind of play with placement. I knew I wanted to pop up these flowers. And so I'm just going to kind of play with placement. Like I want the vellum to be a way to kind of mute that background and give your eyes a place to rest on this card. But I also wanted there to be enough of the flowers to show also. So I kind of played with placement a little bit. Here I'm just taking some Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew and placing that all over the back. As you can tell, I ended up snipping off part of my leaves. And I was like, okay, I guess when I place this on the card, I'll place it to where this edge hangs off, and no one will ever know except for me and all of the YouTubes. So those kind of things happen, just kind of adapt and overcome. If worse came to worse and I just couldn't get it to work, I could always tape it from the back and place an embellishment over it to kind of distract from the seam there. But I just placed it to where when it was on the card, it was going to be cut off along that line anyway. So no worries. Vellum is incredibly difficult to hide the adhesive. Most adhesive shows through it. There are adhesives that are supposed to be specially designed for vellum, but the only thing that I have found that works is to put like adhesive all over the back, and a dry adhesive, not a wet adhesive. I don't know if the vellum I have is just thinner, but when I tried to apply wet adhesive all over the back, even in a thin layer, it still warped it. So like a dot sheet, or Altenew has oh, I can't think what they're called, but they have like a sticker paper kind of sheets that would work great too. So I just put some liquid glue where I knew it would be hidden, and then I glued that piece directly to the card. And then I had to figure out where I needed to add dimension to my sentiment and where I didn't. So I ended up taking more of that Altenew Instant Dimension foam tape and applying adhesive where it would be hidden on, not where it would be hidden, but where it would be level with the flower, where it butts up to the flower. So I didn't need any dimension on the day and on the S of mothers. So I'm just going to apply liquid glue to that, and then I'm going to glue this down on that top kind of left corner, and then this card is done. I felt like with the foil and the gold embossing and the flowers and the vellum, I felt like this was enough. I didn't add any embellishments at all, no sequins, no gems, no pearls. I didn't even put glitter on here. I just felt like it was good enough without it. So here I am cutting off that excess. No one will ever know that I snipped off part of my flower. So that's it. That is the finished card. This again goes with the stationery set that I did a previous video for, and I encourage you to check that out. And until then, that is everything, and I appreciate you spending time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to send someone you love a paper hug. And I'm going to bring in that stationery set, and we will see you next time. Bye.